The final boss is back. It's go time. Season 3 is here. Are you tuning in? Every Sunday is Sitting Down Sundays with the final boss. Get ready for an inspiring journey as we dive deep into the transformation from the nation's capital to the entertainment capital of the world. This is the conversation that will ignite your dreams and fuel your ambitions. What you'll experience: game-changing insights from industry leaders, real talk about making impossible dreams possible, the blueprint for leveling up your life, motivation that hits different. This isn't just another podcast episode. This is your wake-up call to greatness. Don't just listen, absorb, don't just hear. Transform, don't just dream, execute. Drop a like in the comments if you're ready to level up with us.
Welcome to Sunday night's edition of Sitting Down with the Final Boss. Who is I? I am him. We are here. I am here. This is the Final Boss Podcast. Welcome. Episode number 164, ladies and gentlemen. On our way to episode number 200. Episode number 200 is around the corner. It'll be here before you know it. And tonight I have a great show for you guys. Man, listen. I was going to do an episode on the whole Maduro, Venezuela. Why did we go there? I was going to break it all down. The only way I know how, the Final Boss way. Right? But I decided that I did not want to get caught in the media vacuum or the echo chamber, right? That everybody's talking about. I mean, you can't tune into anything without hearing about it. So I made a decision that I was going to I'll talk about it once everybody is done, right? And I know no one has the information I have. So if you really, really want to hear what is going on and what happened, let me know. Let me know in the chat. Let me know, and I'm going to break it all down for you. I spent hours, a lot of time. Hey, Jacondi, how you doing? I spent a lot of time doing research on that very thing. The ins and outs, ups and downs, 360, critical thinking, the works. I gave it the Final Boss treatment. And if you guys really want it, I would do it, but not until everybody else is finished putting their spin on it. And then I would come with the new information, because I don't want to be out there regurgitating anything else anybody else has already said. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead. Hey, what's going on, Killian? How you doing, brother? We're going to go ahead and get into tonight's episode number 164, Panic Posture on the Global Stage, which, mind you, this topic came from the other topic. So instead of doing that topic, I'm going to break this down in another way where you guys can start seeing the picture that's being painted. Right? You can start seeing the picture that's being painted. So let's get started, right? Let's get started. Oh, to anybody out there who's a football fan, look, congratulations on the wins today. My team made it with a 5th seed. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait to see what we do next week against North Carolina. And everyone else out there, man, I wish you guys the best and see you at the finish line. Now, few admin notes. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Continue to like, share, subscribe. Go check out our website at the Final Boss, www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. Make sure you continue to send us emails if you don't have our email addresses. info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. Like, share, subscribe, email, and website. So you can check out all our episodes off the web And yeah, man, episode 200 is around the corner. So let's get right into it, right? Let's get right into it. Man, what happens? Ask yourself this question. Ask yourself this question. Let me get rid of this script. I know you want to know. I know you do. I got you. You know I'm going to take care of you. I got you. What happens when superpowers stop strategizing, right? What happens when superpowers stop strategizing and start surviving? They go into a mode of survival, right? When nations abandon long-term planning for short-term survival instincts. Well, if you want to know, we're going to talk about it tonight, right? We're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to dissect what it means to be in a state of panic posture, right? There's some telltale signs that reveal when global powers are operating from fear instead of strength, reaction instead of strategy, from a semiconductor warfare to economic weaponization, from AI arms race to currency collapse contingencies. The chess masters are making chess piece moves. And listen, the move that we just did to Venezuela, that was chess. I say that was chess. Not playing checkers. That was a chess move, right? The chess masters are making chess piece moves. And that tells us everything, right? Listen, I'm the final boss. This is the Final Boss Podcast. We're on this journey. We're building a community. We're building a Final Boss Nation. We're all in this together. And tonight is Sit Down Sunday with none other than Juan. So, for those of you who are new, welcome. And for those of you who are returning, thank you for joining us, right? We're here every Sunday night or sitting down live at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we transform critical thinkers into strategic executors, right? And this is episode number 164, right? And we're going to take the complex issues and we're going to make them crystal clear. That's what we do. We make it crystal clear, right? So, a little bit about me. I'm the CEO of SatDigiNet, or Saturn Digital Networks Development Corporation, S Corp. It's an IT corporation, right? I served as a branch chief for the Department of Defense, serving in that capacity, not in that capacity, but serving in that organization, Department of Defense, for 23 years. I have 17 years of military service, 10 active, 7 National Guard Reserve time. You don't believe me? Check my DD-214. Check my DD-214, right? Right. Listen, 2-time combat war veteran, right? Iraq and Afghanistan, and I've served somewhere else that I can't mention, right? Also, Pentagon 9/11 spy. So I say all that so it can add to your toolbox. Let this information be a guide through my systematic frameworks that let you know that I'm here to play chess, right? And I move chess pieces. And this is what distinguishes a chess piece to a chess master, right? And tonight we're going to be examining the phenomenon that I've observed over the last couple of decades, right? And from everything from MI to cybersecurity to gov ops, we're talking panic posture, right? It's a sophisticated type of energy, right? It's actorish. I probably made that word up. is when actors abandon strategic discipline to for reactive desperation. So we're going to be examining current global flashpoints, right, through this lens and extract actionable intelligence for our community, the Final Boss community. And everything tonight is, of course, researchable, verifiable, and sourced. This is my notification, let you guys know that, hey, once we're done, I'm going to drop you some resources. You can look up the information and find out the truth on your own. If you don't believe me, go see it for yourself, right? Because I provide non-fictional intelligence analysis that's going to prepare you, yes, you, don't go nowhere, yes, you, prepare you and your mind, right? So let's go ahead and get the brass tacks out of the way. And here's our brass tacks for tonight. Strategy whispers, panic screams. The loudest moves on the global stage are rarely the strongest. They're the most desperate. Learn to read the difference, because your future depends on distinguishing confidence from chaos. And that is our brass tacks from tonight. And listen, that comes from none other than yours truly. And that's a quote that you can find in my Go Time All Aboard the Fired Up Train motivational workbook. 336 pages of motivation, and we take one aspect of motivation, not from energy, but from discipline. From discipline, there's principles in here, like the 6 pillars of success, like the cornerstone of magnificence, like the momentum code. All these principles are right here, right? In my first of many part of the Go Time series. Go Time, all aboard the fired up train. As you see the beautiful train, it's metaphor. It's all metaphors, man. All metaphors. So if you don't have it, it's in bookstores everywhere, Books a Million, Amazon, Insta, Ingram Spark. I mean, you name it, it's out there. Go pick it up, right? Go pick it up. So you're probably wondering, what is panic posture? What is panic posture? Well, in the military and strategic terminology, posture refers to positioning, readiness, and strategic stance. Panic posture occurs when reaction replaces strategy. When you have issues with timeline compression, where long-term strategic goals get abandoned for short-term tactical wins, right? Resource misallocation, right? That's when you have massive expenditures on immediate threats while ignoring systemic vulnerabilities, right? And communication deterioration, right? When messaging becomes contradictory, rushed, or overly aggressive. And I have some real world examples, man. Let's go back in time. Let's go back in time 2 years, right? Let's go back in time to the banking crisis of 2023. When Silicon Valley and certain banks, right, had collapsed, right? FDIC implemented emergency measures within a 48-hour time period, right? Guaranteeing all deposits beyond FDIC limits, right? This wasn't planned strategy. This was panic posture, preventing systemic collapse. The difference between strategy and panic: strategy has contingency layers. Panic has singular desperation moves, right? So, yeah, you don't go nowhere. I'm talking to you, directly to you. Pay attention. Class is in session. Pay attention. I will put you at parade rest. Pay attention. All right. Now, let's establish the pattern recognition framework, right? Because history gives us clear examples of these patterns. I'm always talking about patterns. You have to recognize the patterns, because the patterns let you know what the end game is, because they repeat, they recycle. It's regurgitated. It's like a playbook being played back, right? So, Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. The U.S. and the Soviets were in a mutual panic posture. President Kennedy had a naval blockade, right? But that naval blockade was strategic. It was strategic patience. It was controlled panic. The Soviets president, he had installed missiles, and in that action was reactive panic, right? And there were missile-based systems in Turkey, right? All of these were because somebody pressed the panic button. Resolution came when both sides stepped back from the panic button and went into negotiation, right? Let's fast forward. 2008, financial crisis. Bear Stearns collapsed, right? Lehman Brothers collapsed. Between 6 months, every major financial institution operated in panic posture. There was 700 billion TARP bailout that was passed in a matter of 2 weeks. That's not strategic policymaking. That's panic legislation. Let's fast forward to most recently, 2020. Let's talk about the big C, the big C19, the big C19, right? Where there were global lockdowns that were implemented within weeks. No long-term planning, contradictory guidance, guidance, resource hoarding, classic panic posture across nearly every nation simultaneously. The patterns, you recognize the patterns. Speed implementation inversely correlates with strength and strategic depth. When you see massive policy shifts happening in days or weeks, understand, you are witnessing panic posture. Because typically, those same policies under different situations and circumstances will pass in months or years, right? So, right now, today, we have what is called a semiconductor warfare that's going on in the shadows, right? And it represents the clearest example of global panic posture. Let's break it down. The US, we passed the CHIPS Act in 2022, a $52 billion act and subsidies to rebuild domestic semiconductor manufacturing. Why? Because 92% of advanced chips came from Taiwan and China, right? And China has openly stated Taiwan needs to be reunified with China. And it's inevitable, right? This is what China is saying. It's inevitable for Taiwan to be reunified with China. That's not strategy. That's panic recognition of critical vulnerability. China's response to the big fund, right? To our big act was their big fund, right? And it was announced in 2024. It was a $47 billion domestic chip production that specifically targeted manufacturing, right? And they were going to achieve this goal in 5 years. What took Taiwan to do with their semiconductor production in 30 years, right? And October 22nd, of 2022, the U.S. banned advanced chips exported to China. October 2023, they expanded that ban, right? January 2024, Netherlands and Japan joined in with the restrictions. This is escalation pattern, not strategic implementation. And why this matters, right? Why this matters? Because what are we talking about? What is most of the world talking about? We're talking about AI and AI advancement. Every smart device, every autonomous system requires advanced semiconductors, right? The global powers aren't positioning for advantage. They're scrambling to avoid catastrophic dependence. That scramble creates supply chain instability that will hit consumer electronics, automotive, manufacturing, and defense systems within, get this, people, the next 18 to 24 months, right? So, yes, this is economic warfare that's happening in the shadows. And it has moved from the theoretical to operational. And the panic signals are everywhere, right? When Russia was cut off from a certain banking system in 2022, it proved the global financial system could be weaponized instantly, right? And China sat back and watched. Their response, they accelerated development of cross-border interbank payment systems, right? And expanded on development of the digital yuan internationally, right? That's panic diversification. Look, the Middle East even got involved, right? The Middle East got involved. You hear talks about BRICS and de-dollarization acceleration, right? You hear about that. When the Saudis were thinking about going non-dollar with their oil sales for the first time since 1974, right? The 1974 petrodollar agreement. These BRICS nations were developing alternative currency mechanisms, right? They were doing what is called CBDCs, which is central bank digital currencies, and they were rushing it into development, right? 130 plus countries that represented this central bank digital currency. 98% of the global GDP, right? Now, let's pivot. Let's talk about central banks purchasing 1,100 tons of gold in 2022, right? The highest level since 1967. China, Russia, India, Turkey were leading in those purchases. When central banks abandoned their own currency systems for hard assets, that's institutional panic posture, right? Now, the US debt ceiling exceeds right now $34 trillion, right? The recurring debt ceiling crisis, there's no negotiations for that, right? Only panic acknowledgments. And that system requires constant emergency interventions to continue functioning. These aren't strategic repositioning moves. These are survival instinct reactions to systemic fragility and recognition, right? The AI development race has moved from competitive to existentially panicked, right? Biden created an executive order, right? He created an executive order, the AI executive order, which created instant regulatory framework. When government moves faster than technology typically allows, that indicates panic about being left behind or losing control. China's response was they developed what is called the generative AI and its regulations. And that was published in July of 2023, updated in November 2023, right? And revised again in 2024. That's not methodical. Methodical. That's not methodical policy development. That's reactionary regulation. That's attempting to keep pace with technology they fear losing control of. And how did the EU respond? They negotiated and passed in record time EU legislation, first comprehensive AI law globally, for implemented before AI capabilities are even fully understood. That's again regulatory panic, right? And then you have the private sector. You have companies like OpenAI. You have Google's Gemini. You have Claude. You have Microsoft, right? They were investing billions and billions, and on Facebook too, Meta, right? In open source and AI development. You notice the pattern. Nobody's following a strategic timeline. Everyone's reacting to everyone else's releases. That's panic posture masked as innovation. Who's going to be first, right? Who is going to be first to AGI, artificial general intelligence? Who's going to be first to artificial super intelligence? Who, right? And why should we care? Why should we as everyday citizens care? This is why we should care. Because AI systems being developed under panic posture does not have adequate safety testing. The ethical frameworks lack, or there are going to be societal impacts, right? And right now, we're beta testing civilization altering technology that's happening in real time. We're all guinea pigs. We're all guinea pigs right now. So let's pivot again. Let's go into the military. Let's go into the military, man. Last year, in 2022, I was going to say last year, but you do know, just FYI, the U.S. spends $900 billion in military spending annually. $900 billion in military spending. That's almost $1 trillion a year annually. You know how much money Venezuela spent on its military last year? $3.4 million. That's what they spent on their military last year. You know what they spent on their military the year before? $4.3 million. In the last 3 years, Venezuela has only spent $14 million. 14. That's somebody's house in the Potomac. 14 million, and that's wild. $14 million on defense spending. That's what Venezuela spent on their military in the last 3 years. You have to understand the correlation. I'm dropping gems and I'm dropping seeds, right? I'm leading you to the water because I want you to drink. I want you to drink up, right? So, global military spending hit 2.24 trillion in 2022, highest ever recorded. But spending increases alone don't indicate panic posture. It's the speed and nature of the modernization, right? Russia had claimed operational hypersonic missiles, right? In 2019. We responded with compressed development timelines, emergency funding, and admitted that we were behind. Publicly, we said that, right? When it came to hypersonic missiles. China's response was they had something called DF-21D which was a carrier killer missile, right? And this is all public information, right? This is all public information. And that admission led to panic acknowledgement, right? The U.S. Space Force, which was created in December 2019, right? China's Strategic Support Force Space Division expanded in 2020. India's Defense Space Agency in 2019. Russia's Aerospace Forces restructured, all within 24 months. That's a pattern. That's synchronized panic response to space warfare recognition, right? Now, let's pivot. I'm dropping gems. I hope you guys are taking notes, man. I hope you're taking notes. Let's talk about drone warfare, right? Let's talk about drone warfare. In the Ukraine, the Ukraine proved that small, cheap, autonomous systems can neutralize expensive traditional assets, right? The global response, there was a rush to build autonomous weapons, right? Without international agreements, without limitations, without AI decision-making considerations for lethality and lethal force, right? Now, right? U.S. Cyber Command had elevated the Unified Combatant Command in 2019. They elevated that, right? And most NATO nations established dedicated cyber warfare divisions, which started in 2019 and continued throughout. Not because of cyber threats were new, because they weren't, because they finally panicked about being unprepared, right? The Big P building in DC owns reports and acknowledged modernization gaps within, right? When your military publicly admits vulnerabilities, that's institutional panic posturing. So here we are. Critical infrastructure, right? Critical infrastructure, right? The Texas grid failure of 2021 created a huge problem. $130 billion in damages, over 200 deaths, or people being unalive. The European energy crisis in 2022, the Russian gas cutoff, the California blackouts, Germany reactivating coal, right? These aren't strategic, right? These aren't strategic. They're panic responses to recognized grid inadequacies, right? Water system vulnerabilities. Everybody, please know that Flint, Michigan is still having water problems. It's ridiculous, right? Those issues have not been resolved. Jackson, Mississippi, they still have issues with their water and their water crisis. Lead in those lines, and I don't want to get into that. Right? The estimated cost to repair those systems, $625 billion, right? $625 billion. And that's immediate actions, right? Immediate actions. Now, when we talk about these instabilities, you have to talk about the infrastructure and transportation, right? Infrastructure and transportation, right? We have to talk about the supply chains, right? And these single point failures. C-19 exposed in real time all types of manufacturing vulnerabilities, right? All types of manufacturing vulnerabilities, right? These single points of failure shouldn't exist in a strategic infrastructure. Their existence proves we built reactively and not strategically. When critical infrastructure failures are acknowledged but not adequately addressed, that's panic awareness. And that's panic awareness without panic resources. The most dangerous posture of them all, right? Now, listen, we talk about climate a lot, right? It's an ongoing thing. We talk about it a lot, right? And there's climate policies that have been reactive, right? But in actuality, these climate policies are supposed to provide clear and cut, concise answers to the climate issues, but they don't, right? They're based off of climate policies that you could clearly see the pattern for panic posture. There's indicators throughout, right? Indicators throughout. Now, and you could go research the Paris agreements, the green energy that was transformed, fossil fuels, geoengineering considerations. You could go do the research on all of those things. You will see the glaring panic button, right? So there's a lot of and it's always, I'm not going to say there's a lot of, right? There's always social stability indicators, right? Or social unrest or social instability. They pretty much go hand in hand sometimes. You have to see that social cohesion breakdown indicators reveal governmental panic postures, right? That's something else that you have to see. You have to see that these aren't gradual, right? They're accelerated, right? Increased surveillance, social media regulations, attempts, the misinformation, plans that were very prevalent, like a task force that was out there, you know, that's reactive panic, not strategic bridge building, right? You have to understand. You have to understand when you have a majority of populations that distrust their government and their governing institutions, those institutions operate in panic preservation, right? It's not strategic governance anymore. It's panic, right? When you have protests and civil unrest, going back from issues, the protests with uh, George Floyd and so forth and so on, the BLM, um, all of those responses by the government were panic responses, heightened military police presence, emergency powers were expanded, digital monitoring and surveillance increased. All panic responses recognize the pattern, which attempt to maintain control rather than address the root causes, right? And what goes along with that? If you take this segment and put it in a bubble, a spider web bubble. And the on the spider web, you have these existential crises that I'm mentioning, right? This one right here, you cannot have without the result of those existential crises, those panics, and that's mental health, right? Mental health is at an all-time high, higher than it's ever been, right? Suicide rates are increasing, addiction increasing, social isolation increasing. What's the response? Awareness campaigns, inadequate funding, acknowledging the crisis without a plan that's adequate, right? For intervention. That's panic paralysis, right? Because when populations lose trust in systems, those systems operate from fear of collapse, not confidence of stability, right? The information battlefield reveals panic through control attempts. You have to see the patterns, right? When the misinformation, disinformation framework was prevalent like a few years ago, right? Misinformation, that label was expanded to include verified facts, right? Verified facts. Because when truth determination becomes politicized, that indicates panic about narrative control loss, right? And there was a point where they were trying to regulate social media. They still are, right? You had bans that were under consideration for various social media platforms, right? They were implemented, they were proposed. Rapid regulatory is being increased right now as we speak, right? Somebody is hitting the panic button because they're trying to control the information slip, right? Because information is too prevalent. It's too many voices, too many people with the information, right? May not be the right information, but information itself is dangerous, right? It's dangerous, especially when you have deep fakes, right? You see where I'm going? You have synthetic media. You have all these new AI videos acting as someone else, right? Automated propaganda, right? This is deliberate. It's deliberate. It's trying to confuse you. Most people can't tell the difference between AI and reality when it comes to digital platforms, right? That's becoming a platform liability in itself, and it's expanding, right? That is reactionary panic. And look, I could talk about this all night. I could talk about this all night. You see the patterns. Look at elections. Look at every major election, right? Every major election now includes interference claims. Every single one. Whether they're blaming it on Russia, they're blaming it on China, they're blaming it on whomever, right? Right? And this is important. This is something that has to do with Venezuela, right? You don't know that. I'm going to hit you to something, right? But not right now. Later on. That's for another discussion, right? The constant state of election security panic indicates institutional fragile recognition, right? Fragile recognition. Listen, recognize the patterns. Whistleblowers. There was an escalation of whistleblowers, man. Starting from Mr. Snowden, right? You had WikiLeaks. You had these Pentagon cables, right? The Twitter files. All those issues from all these different whistleblowers, right? That's panic about loss of information monopoly. The monopoly on information is no longer, it doesn't exist anymore. Everybody with a cell phone potentially has a platform to convey information, right? Yeah. Because when information becomes weaponized, control attempts intensify. And you're witnessing panic about population narrative right now as we speak, right? It's happening right now. The C-19 taught us, and this was something that happened in real time, right? It was something that happened in real time. It was a huge case study on a global level. It was global panic posturing, right? WHO delayed the pandemic declaration and between January and March, of 2020. I started paying attention to it back in October of 2019 when it hit China. And I said, you know what? I said it'd be here. I was telling my coworkers, I said it would be here by December. Nobody wanted to believe me. Nobody wanted to believe me. December came, January, it's here. No one wanted to believe me. I kept telling people, I was like, listen, this is going to be here, right? The WHO delayed the panic response declaration. Nations implemented their policies, and some of that guidance was masked, right? And it changed weekly. Lockdowns, they varied, right? It didn't happen till later on. Even with the travel bans were haphazard, right? They weren't synchronized. That was global panic without strategic coordination. Look at the pattern, right? Listen. Despite all the things we've discussed thus far, right? All the things we've discussed, all things point to what's very possible. And that very possibility is economic collapse, right? Economic collapse is a huge possibility, right? It's like somebody keeps pressing the panic button, trying to thwart it off, right? But it keeps circling back, right? I'm trying to tell you, these panic buttons are real. These actions are real. You think they're coordinated. You think that they're strategic. This is panic posturing, right? And, I'm going to help you guys out, man. I'm going to help you out. How to identify. I know you're asking, like, how do you identify panic posture in your environment, right? There's signals. When it comes to corporate, there's signals. When it comes to your own finances, there's signals. When it comes to community, there's signals. Listen, there's signals out there, man, that'll let you know, and they're almost glaring if you know what to look for, right? When it comes to corporate panic signals, you notice the restructuring without clear strategic vision, the leadership turnover acceleration, right? Cost-cutting targeting, i.e., laying a lot of people off, right? And saying it's for operational inefficiencies, right? Inefficiency. Communication clarity decreases, right? And constant emergency meetings. You're having meeting for the meeting for the meeting for the meeting. I've been there, done that. It's not a fun place to be, right? And listen, you, yes, you have a panic recognition button, right? If you don't recognize it, I'm about to tell you what it is. You ever have moments when your decision making is compressed, right? Or you're making major decisions too quickly, right? Without thinking critically about those decisions that you're about to make. Or when you're in a state of information consumption addiction, right? That's the thing. A lot of y'all doom scroll or constantly looking for the next greatest piece of information, right? That's an addiction. Constantly checking news, constantly checking the markets, right? When your contingency plans become um, catastrophic disasters, right? They no longer exist. Or when you have short-term thinking that dominates long-term planning, panic recognition within yourself, right? When you're in a state of reaction versus being in a state of proaction or being proactive, you're possibly in a state of panic, right? Observe the patterns, recognize the panic, maintain strategic discipline. I'm not saying that it's not possible for you to operate in that state. You can operate in any state as long as you recognize it. You recognize it for what it is, and you have the discipline, which you can get from Go Time, all aboard the Fired Up train, and the principles of discipline here. It'll help you through those processes. It will help you through that state of panic. Listen, when the world operates from panic, ask yourself, how can you maintain strategic posture? Right? This is where the 5 systems of sovereignty come into play, right? And the 5 systems of sovereignty is in the next Go Time book, right? It's in the next Go Time book. The first is financial sovereignty, right? Making sure that your financial systems are diversified, right? Having multiple streams of income, right? The next one would be information sovereignty, where um, you develop critical analysis and skills, right? You're verifying information that you're taking in, right? You understand the biases and you recognize propaganda, right? Then there's a resource sovereignty, right? That's when panic creates supply chain disruptions, right? You're not a survivalist, right? You need to understand and be strategic when emergency situations happen. Stockpiling, strategic. Food, water, energy, medical supplies, tools, strategic, right? Not hoarding. There's a difference. Skill sovereignty, right? When all systems fail, all you have is your skills, right? Learn, learn and build on those basics. Build on the basics of medical skills. See, basic CPR, right? How to grow food, right? Increase your physical fitness. And it doesn't necessarily mean go to the gym, right? Use what you have. The human, us, us, us as humans, our capabilities transcend from any type of collapse. We're adaptable, right? And then you have what is called community sovereignty, right? Understanding that your loved ones that are isolated are vulnerable. Connect with them, right? Connect with them. Let's build long lasting founding relationships. Let's bring forth people into the Find a Boss community, Find a Boss Nation. Let's establish mutual aid networks where everybody benefits, right? Let's develop these trust circles that everybody talks about, but nobody is implementing. In times of crisis, social capital exceeds financial capital, right? You need to understand that, right? Now, let's do a quick pivot before we close out. Global panic creates opportunities. All panics, whatever levels, creates opportunities if you're able to see and recognize the patterns, right? Every major crisis created generational wealth, right? The Great Depression, World War II, the 1970s oil crisis, the 2008 financial crisis, C-19, right? All created opportunities, right? Right now, AI, automation, quantum computing, and early strategic adapters are going to benefit. As supply chains are being restructured from C-19 and the logistical hazards that chaos had created, these manufacturing rezoning and redistribution and production networks are going to benefit, right? Positioning themselves ahead of the shift that's coming, right? The new, well, I'm not going to say new, but it's coming. Digital currency is coming, right? Understand the technology before the panic adoption because it's coming, right? And stay abreast on renewable tech, right? Get smart, people. Get smart, right? Get smart on grid modernization, energy storage, right? Cloud systems. Get yourself in position strategically while people are still debating, right? Listen, as final bosses, smarts, motivators, warriors, and damn it, who did I miss? Smarts, motivators, warriors, final boss. Okay, cool. When others panic, you prepare. When others react, you execute. When others fear, you analyze, right? Pattern recognition plus strategic discipline equals competitive advantage, right? Now, listen. We identified on this episode what panic posture patterns are out there that are in your environment. You can look around there in your workplace, They might be in your finances. They might be in your community. But now you have the ability to recognize them, right? When you get a chance, implement one of the 5 sovereignty systems and improve upon it, right? There's 5 of them. Pick one, right? And for the next quarter, because we're in quarter number 1, right? Because quarter number 1 just started. Try to reduce critical dependence on one of your most fragile systems. Remember, you have to write these things down in order to recognize them. Just storing them up here isn't going to help. You have to recognize them. You recognize the fragile system within yourself and you correct it, or you become less dependent on it, right? And look, this year, I want you guys, to my Final Boss Nation, to my Final Boss community, this year, I want you to improve upon one of your strategic capabilities, right? I want you to improve upon it. Just one system, right? It could be your financial system, whatever, community system. Just one. It could be personal. Just improve upon that one system. Make it more stable than the others, right? And as I stated in the beginning, we was discussing the brass tacks. And here's the reality to the brass tacks, right? Global panic posture will intensify before it improves. Economic fragility and technological disruption, environmental stress, social polarization, those issues aren't being resolved, and they're accelerating. Your mental edge isn't predicting the future. It's preparing for multiple futures while others panic, right? Remember, chess pieces react to the board. Chess masters control it. The global stage is showing you panic moves from supposed masters. That tells you you're actually a player, not a controller. That means you can play strategically while they react desperately. Listen, this has been episode 164, Panic Posture on the global stage. Thank you all for joining us. That is our show for tonight. We're sitting down with the Final Boss, sitting down on Sundays, right? Stay strategic, stay sovereign, and stay dangerous. And if you, all of this marinating to your spine, right? If it resonates, let it marinate. And remember, there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but the pain of regret is even heavier. Now, I'm going to give you one crumb that nobody's talking about when it comes to Venezuela. Venezuela is the only country in the world that had developed and was able to identify issues with electronic voting systems. That's it. That's all that's the gem of dropping right now, right? I'll talk about it in another discussion. It's a lot of issues, but think about that, right? Think about that. That's our show, episode number 164. And if you want some resources, man, go let's see. Let's give you guys some resources. Let me see. And let's talk about articles. You could talk articles right now you can find on the Federal Reserve crisis of 2023. Bank failures from those different banks that I was discussing. Bank of International Settlements and the Central Bank Gold Reserve Reports, IMF, Global Debt Databases, right? U.S. Chips and Science Act, that's Public Law 117-167. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, which is TSMC. You can look at their annual reports. The U.S. Commerce Department export control regulations, China's National Integrated Circuit Industry Investment Fund reports. All of those are public information. Look at Executive Order 14110 on safe, secure AI development. Look at EU Artificial Intelligence Act. Listen, if you need more resources, ask. Send me an email. Hit me up on whatever platform you see us on. I'd be more than happy to send you the resources of the information for tonight's episode. I do not have a problem with that. And to each and every last single one of you, thank you for joining us. We are here. I am here. This is Final Boss Podcast. This is the Final Boss Nation, and this is the Final Boss community. And we're building and working on this journey together. And remember, people, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Be balanced, be equal, and be smart. That is our show. I hope you enjoyed the information that was conveyed to you tonight. I know it was a lot. I know sometimes it's you need a class for the class. But guess what? I'm the teacher. I'm the professor. And I'll be more than happy to teach you some more. And by the way, Final Boss University is on its way, baby. Final Boss University is on its way. Also, go pick up Go Time. Go pick up Go Time. You have some questions, you have some issues, go pick up Go Time. All aboard the Fired Up train. Motivation workbook, people, right here. Right here. Principles, theories, you name it, it's in here. You got it. And look at the handsome guy in the back. Yeah, that's me. All right. That's enough, man. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night for Motivation Monday. And I'll talk to you soon. And remember, we're going to talk about Venezuela when all of the conversations die down. And we're going to discuss aspects that people aren't discussing because I found them. Y'all have a great night. Talk to you soon. Good night.